my Savior.
I've been a member of our church for 12 years. First United Methodist Church in Missouri City has been a source of strength and stability for me, and I'm sure you also. I would like to share with you a few key areas where your help through generosity is needed in these times of uncertainty. Generosity starts with an understanding that everything we have is a gift from God and for God. Generosity is giving above and beyond what is expected. It's giving self-sacrificing, and it's giving self-denying. No matter where you are in your journey of generosity, there are a few practical steps that will help you grow in the grace of giving. You may have a vision or sense a need, and you feel compelled to do something about it. Spontaneous generosity is stepping up or stepping in with a gift of time, talent, or treasure. There may not be a rhythm to your giving, but there is a rhyme. You give as the Spirit leads, and that's where generosity begins. Paul spotlights the generosity of the Macedonians this way. This was total spontaneous and entirely their own idea. If you're going to grow in any area of your life, consistency is key, and that's certainly true of generosity. This is how the rhyme turns into a rhythm, where we have the added advantage of automatic withdrawal. The idea of weekly offering traces its origins back to 1 Corinthians 16:2. On the first day of the week, each of us should set aside a sum of money in keeping with our own income. One way we can practice consistent generosity is via reoccurring giving. It turns consistent generosity into clockwork. Money in keeping with Corinthians 8:11 says, "Give in proportion to what you have." This idea of proportionate generosity traces back to the Old Testament tithe, which literally means 10%. But it's not only 10%, it's the first 10% or first fruits. The tithe isn't the ultimate goal in the journey of generosity, but it's a key benchmark. In 2 Corinthians, we read that the Macedonian church was being tested by severe trials and tribulations, much as we are now in this COVID-19 outbreak. Paul doesn't detail how those early Christians were being harassed or oppressed, but he points out their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. He says they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability. This is how we stretch our faith, and that's the goal. However, this doesn't mean you don't save for college or retirement or that special vacation. This kind of generosity doesn't happen overnight. But if you live to give, you will grow in the grace of giving, and God's kingdom will advance because of it. In fact, your generosity will turn into someone else's miracle. Some say the word Easter is derived from Estre, an ancient Anglo-Saxon goddess who symbolized the rebirth of the day at dawn and the rebirth of life in the spring. Have a blessed Easter Sunday. We will get through these trying times. Thank you for allowing me to share this message today and for your continued prayers and support of our church.
Hey, good evening for our Family Faith Night. Here at First United Methodist Church, we welcome you guys. Glad you're with us as we continue. As we said last week, we were supposed to end Family Faith Night last week. That was what was on the calendar and the schedule, but we decided, what the heck, let's go a few more weeks. And people seem to be enduring it, if not enjoying it. And so we thought we'd do this. And since I mentioned Myers-Briggs in a sermon a couple weeks ago, we thought it'd be kind of fun to teach a couple of Tuesday nights on Myers-Briggs. It's called the Type Indicator, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. It is not a test. That's the important thing to remember. It is known as an inventory. When you take this inventory, I still may call it a test. When you take it, there are no right or wrong answers, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Myers-Briggs, the MBTI is really based on a lot of Dr. Richard Burnham's favorite person's studies, Carl Jung, and it's based on his theories of personality types, and then mother Catherine Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers developed the MBTI. Now, there are a lot of folks, studies, and experts who don't put any weight in the Myers-Briggs. They think because the Briggs had no formal training that there's no scientific proof behind it. But there's others who will say that of all the personality inventories, this is one of the better. It is probably the most popular of them all. But just know there are people who like it, people who don't. It's been researched and studied and changed for 70 years, over the last 70 or 80 years, and about 70 to 75% of all Fortune 500 companies use it. Barbara Roberson told me that she uses it in her premarital counseling. I've used it with couples. I do think it's a good indicator. Couple of things we're going to get into so that you understand what it is and what it isn't. It's based on Jung's theory that we are all born with certain natural predispositions which do not change throughout our lives. And out of that foundation, Myers-Briggs came up with 16 personality types. And the personality types have their natural strengths, their natural weaknesses, as well as blind spots. And it's the reason why I love the inventory, the reason why I love the test, the reason why I put so much weight into it. It's a good way to study yourself, to look at why you respond in certain situations, and also to judge those how other people around you might respond. Somebody may get mad and you don't understand why, but if you know a little bit about the Myers-Briggs and if you do the research and the study on it, you may be able to figure that out, the why someone reacts, someone responds, someone operates differently than you. So there's 16 different types based on 8 different letters or characteristics, and we're going to go over each of those. We're not going to go over the types today. And then here's what we're doing. We went back and forth. I debated with myself whether to send out the link before so that you could take one of the free tests. It's not the exact Myers-Briggs. That costs about $40. But the links I'm going to send, you can take a couple of them. They're free. Are they as accurate? Well, it depends who you ask. I guess if you're borderline on any of these choices, it may not be as accurate as the Myers-Briggs. I'm not sure. But everyone I've given it to seems to think it scores about the same as the Myers-Briggs. So, but I debated back and forth whether or not I should send it out before. And I thought, since we're not going to go over the 16 types tonight, that that maybe it'd be better for me to explain what this is and what each letter means and each thing means, and then send the link out tomorrow. John Henson Rogers I'll get something to him, and he'll send it out mid-morning tomorrow. You can take the test, the inventory, and score how you are, and then also be able to read about your type. And it'll give you some good resources. And then next week, I want to look at how we use the Myers-Briggs specifically for spirituality, for our own spiritual growth. That's how I got turned on to Myers-Briggs. I was in seminary at Perkins, and my prayer and spirituality professor, Dr. Ruth Tiffany Barnhouse, Episcopalian priest, was real big in the Myers-Briggs, and I used to have this dream of being like Henry Nouwen, real inner thoughts, journaling and spending time in silence, and when I shared that with Dr. Barnhouse, she just laughed at me and said, "That will never happen. You are definitely an E, and Henry Nouwen was definitely an I, and your personality doesn't relate to spirituality like Henry Nouwen's." If you've ever felt guilty because you've heard preachers say to spend 30 minutes a day in quiet time, and you try and you make it 6 minutes, maybe, that may be why. We all experience spirituality different. We all experience God differently. We're all wired differently, even among the 16 types, and we'll talk about that. So here's what's real important, and this is where John is going to really help, John Hogue. By the way, no one still has brought us a snack supper. We're kind of sad about that. But John's going to help. If you have a question in the middle of this, it'd be really, if you just type it in there, and then John will give that question to me. John says there's about a 15-second lag, so I may not answer it right away, but as soon as it pops up on the screen to me, I'll be able to answer that. So, because this does raise some issues and some questions. Now, there are 8 letters, 8 traits that Myers-Briggs came up with, which is more than what Jung did. But there's these 8 traits, and they're in pairs, and the pairs are opposite, if you will. Now, a couple of things I want to tell you about. You need to get rid of your definitions as you know them, because the way some of these words are used in the Myers-Briggs world is different than how they're used in our world. And if you don't, if you come into this with your definition and your understanding of that word, you may miss the point that Myers-Briggs was trying to make. So we're going to try to explain that. And 2, I want to make this real clear. I've had people tell me that their personality, they take it, it's different. I believe that we really don't change that. I think we learn to adapt that. I think there's different ways we're going to answer the questions, and you're going to overanalyze it when you take the test or the inventory. You're going to overanalyze it, and you're going to say, well, sometimes I like this, sometimes I'm like that. Well, what you want to do is go with your first gut instinct. Because that's the only way to do it. If you think too much about it, it's not going to be accurate. First gut instinct, because this is how I explain it, and I was explaining this to Leah. What this really does, it's not an absolute. It's not measured in a vacuum, right? We do adapt, even though we don't change. And for example, on mine, and you'll get this. And if you ask Jill, she'll tell you it's true. I am a pure P in the Myers-Briggs world, but I've learned to be a little bit of a J, and you'll understand that in a second. And I'm going to answer that question in a second, John. And you'll understand that when I go over these letters, what that means. But we learn how to adapt to our world. We learn how to grow in our weaknesses, the parts of me that should be Jay. And like I said, I'll explain it. But what I tell people, you are who you are. You're wired like you're wired. And what the Myers-Briggs does is it shows you how you're going to react in the moment of stress. What is your natural tendency? Doesn't mean it's always going to work that way, which is why you go with your first gut instinct. Does that make any sense? I hope you understand that. I'll try to explain it better. Was that Eric that asked the question, John? Eric asked a question about introverts, and hey, Eric, I'm going to get to that, okay? Thumbs up, Eric. Good question, though. Never really thought of that. So, and we'll get to that in a second. So I want to talk about the letters now, what they are, and what they measure. And the first two letters are extrovert and introvert. Now, if you come in with your understanding of that, as the world understands extroverts and introverts, you will not get the Myers-Briggs. You just won't. Because that's not how, they didn't talk about whether you're outgoing or not outgoing. Most preachers, by the way, are I's and not E's. Johnny Carson is an I, not an E, for those of you who know Johnny Carson. A lot of entertainers are I's and they're not E's. Now, what the EI does is it talks about where we direct our energy, but what I like to say, it kind of tells us how we get energy. How do we charge our batteries? As you can imagine, an extrovert focuses on the outer world of things and peoples and events, and the introvert focus more on the inner world of thoughts, ideas, and reflection. An extrovert, if you're an extrovert and you're kind of tired, you need to put yourself around people. People energize you. Action energizes you. If you're an introvert, being around a large group of people for a large period of time just kind of wears you out. I had a friend in Beaumont she was a teacher, and she came to me one day and we were talking, and she said, I'm just so tired at the end of the day. There must be something wrong with me. I don't know what it is. Can we talk? Well, we talked about this, and turns out she's an introvert. She's an I. I mean, pure I. And so what that meant was for 6 hours or whatever a day, she was on. And she was surrounded by 20 kids or whatever, and she was on. And it wore her out. So at the end of the day, she just needed to go and be alone to recharge. I was telling somebody today, they stopped by to drop off a check, and they asked about how hard it is to preach to an empty room. Well, for me, it's brutal because I'm an E. I'm an extrovert, off the chart, E. I get charged by people. I feed off the energy of people. And when we have this empty sanctuary with 5 of us here, there's not a lot of energy. And so I have to manufacture that energy myself. And so when I get home now, I'm just flat worn out. But on Sunday mornings, when things are normal and we're together, it energizes me, and I feed off you folks who are listening to me. So that's the difference in the EI. Put Eric's question back up, John, can you? Eric's question was this. Hold on, Eric, we're getting it. How can you be introverted and still care about people? Because the two are not, it's not about that you don't care about. If you're introverted, it just means you still care about people, but people, after a length of time, large group of people, will wear you out. And you have to back away and to recharge. Some of the best pastors are I's because why? They're great one-on-one, right? They're incredible one-on-one, and they get energy from that. So they're not mutually exclusive. This is just how you're going to direct your energy and where you get your charge from. When I do premarital counseling, I always tell people, couples, especially when you got a strong E and a strong I getting married, you have to be very aware of that, because if you go to a gathering, a large gathering, I'm an E. I'm going to work the room, right? We have something here at the church. I'm going to work the room. I'm going to try to say hi to every single person I can, right? But an I is going to, well, they're not going to. An I wants to stay in a small group with a small circle. And so if you're an I married or dating an E and you go to a gathering, the E may leave you and you're kind of on your own. The E could stay all night and the I gets themselves worn out. Richard Burnham was joking about how this isolation isn't hard for him. He's an I. But for those of us who are E's, it's brutal because we feed off being around people. So there's the difference, Eric. I hope that answered your question. Most E's are going to be more outgoing than most I's. But I's can turn it on and be outgoing and talkative. E's are gonna be living in a more fast-paced world environment. I's kind of like to think a little more. They gather more thoughts. An E, if you're trying to figure out a problem, an E wants to think out loud to people. An I is going to be very introspective on that. And E's, yeah, I know it's hard to believe, like to be the center of attention, and I's would rather observe than be the center of attention. So that's kind of how that works. E's will act and then think. I's will think and then act. Right? And that's exactly right, Martha. I's get worn out at parties and E's can just stay. I's will leave an E will leave an I when they walk in the door so they can work the room. Where I's excel is you're okay with being alone. Alone time is great. If you want to be alone, if you're an I, if you're a strong I, this isolation is doing okay for you. There's a lot of people, Melanie, who are 50-50, and that's really who you are. I have friends who scored almost down the middle in every single one of these, and God bless them. I think then what you have to just figure out is how do you best recharge? If you're really that close to 50-50 on the EI, when you're tired, what is going to be your best mode of living? Do you isolate and kind of recharge there, or do you go out and be with people? So the 50-50s have it hard. People like me who are off the scale on all of them, we have it a little easier because we know what to do, and we know what our weaknesses are and how to build on those. So I hope that answered question. And being 50-50 or being, 55-45, being in that is not abnormal. A lot of people are that. And then what I always tell people who, if you're really that close to the middle, take the test again, or maybe a different test. There's different versions of them. Take a different one if you didn't take the real Myers-Briggs, and do that at a different time of the day, because that can also affect just because of your energy level. So those are the EIs. I know that Barbara Roberson's an I, right? Leah Stevens is an E. Richard is an E. No, Richard's an I. I don't know where that came from. Kimball's an E. I can probably go through the staff. Gail's an E, but she really wants to be an I, but she's really an E, which is why she can't stay in her office. She's just an E. Jenny's an I. Marie Abbott's an I. So you start watching people interact, and you can just, you get an idea what they are. People like Melanie Bouillon are the hard ones because if they're really kind of 50-50, it depends on the environment. On a Sunday morning, Melanie may be an E, greeting everybody, but when she's not here having to do that, she may tend to be more of an I. Questions on EIs? Oh, geez, we got to hurry. Sorry. The next one is how you take in information. There's the sensing, and then there's the intuition. Sensing, just like it sounds, want to use their senses. They will judge the world based on what they see, what they hear, what they smell, what they taste, what they touch. S's, sensors, are great with facts and with details. They want to understand the parts so they can get the overall design. Sensing people are usually much more practical and realistic. Eyes, however, ends, we're pretty much big picture. We enjoy concepts and theories and being abstract. And I want to see, in my world, I'm an N, I want to see the big picture and then see how the single parts contribute to that. So it's really the opposite. S is, here's the best way I give an example. When I was doing youth work, kids used to get so mad at me because I'm a way N, and they would come up and say, "You notice anything different?" And I'd be like, "Oh, no. Did you get braces? Did you get your braces off? Did you wear glasses? Did you not wear?" Because the sense, I just can't do it. Ask me what people ask, "Well, how tall is he?" I don't know, But if I talk to you, I can get a sense for how you're feeling, how your mood is. That's the intuitive part. S's still have intuition, and N's still use the S. It's just not what is going to dominate your thinking. I always joke that I could never be a detective because I am such an N. I could never give someone a description of what someone looked like. So if you're an S, you like concrete facts and details and practical applications, and you're going to explain things in a very specific, literal way. And if you're an N, that ain't who you are. You're going to imagine more of the possibilities of what could be. Bobby Kennedy, I see things that, some men see things that never were and ask why. I see things that never were and ask why not. Or something, the possibilities is for the N. N's love ideas just for the sake of ideas. So that's those. It's how you take in information. So EI, the first letter, is going to be how you get energy. The second, SN, is going to be how you take in information. The third, and this is where people get a little touchy, how we make decisions. There's the T and the F, the thinking and the feeling. It sounds negative if you're one or the other, right? Well, you're not much feeling if you're a T. Well, you don't think much if you're an F. That's not really how it is. It's how you make decisions, okay? A T is going to use objective, impersonal logic. T's are amazing at analyzing and solving problems rationally. T's will focus on tasks, then relationships. Sometimes T's are seen as cold and detached, but they're really not. It's just, I'm going to deal with this, then I'm going to build that relationship. F's focus our decisions on how it's going to affect people and their feelings. We're very good at understanding others. T's think that we are the most emotional and irrational people in the world. T's mean turbulent. Yeah. T's drive me crazy. They just do. I love them, but they can drive me crazy. When I was in Lake Jackson, I had a church full of engineers, and most engineers are T-types, and they would lose their mind with me because I was preaching from an NF to a bunch of STs, and I had to. That's when I became more of a teacher because Lake Jackson engineers could follow my points that way. So I had to adapt. And I tried to remember STs in my preaching, but NFs, TFs, does that make sense how you guys do things? T's are going to value justice and fairness. F's are going to value harmony and forgiveness. F's are going to always work for consensus so that people don't get their feelings hurt. And T's are going to just, they're going to take what they believe is fair and what they believe is best. T's are great at finding flaws in arguments, and F's don't want to find the flaws. They just want to point out what's best in people, right? It's just how you make decisions. One way you can tell sometimes what you might be is if you say, I feel or I think, that may give you a hint as to which one you are without even taking the test. But again, there's not one that is better, there's not one that is right, and there's not one that is wrong. It is how we are wired. So we've done EIs, SNs, TFs. Now for the one that is the hardest to explain because the words that they use are terrible. It's how we organize ourselves and the world around us. And you have a J and you have a P. J is judging, not in the sense that you use the word, we use the word, but it's different, and I'll explain it. And P is perceiving, and again, not in this idea of how we presently use the words. Let me give you an example of a J. Let me give you an example of a P. A J will have a to-do list, and a P will have a to-do list, right? If you want to know which one you are, okay, you are a P if you do something that's not on your list, but then you write it on your list so you can have the joy of checking it off. That's a P. A T would never think of their list. It's what they do, and they get through their checklist. A J does not want to have anything left unsettled. A P always wants to have options, right? Zach and Jill can can attest to this. She can put in the comments. Zach is a P, Connor is a J, right? Zach wants to know all options before making a decision, right? Connor wants to have things settled, and God forbid you change the plan without talking to him and giving him warning. Rules and deadlines are J's. P's are, there's a little more flexibility in those. J's want detailed step-by-step instructions. P's want to improvise, kind of go as you go. J's are great plan makers. P's are very spontaneous. If you're a J married to a P, you could drive each other crazy, right? One way you could tell a P or a J is go to their desk, right? And don't go to it when, things are calm, but go to their desk or their office or their house when things are a little crazy. If it's a bunch of piles and they're going to tell you they know where everything is, they're a P, they're not a J. Right? J's they tend to lend towards P's, not J's. I force myself to use some J tendencies, but in the matter of moments of stress, I'm a P, through and through. If we go somewhere, let's just go. We don't have to have an agenda. If you plan out your vacation agenda, you may be a J, not a P. If you just want to go, if you want to just hop in the Jeep and drive and find a place to eat, not caring, just show up somewhere without a plan, you may be a P. It's good to know that, what your partner is or what your friends are or what your staff are, or the people you work with, because then you'll understand why they do what they do sometimes. It's easy to understand why Leah's office looks like it does, because she's a P. She may score higher on the P than I do. It's who we are. It doesn't mean that a P can't have J tendencies or shouldn't, nor does it mean that a J shouldn't be spontaneous, or they can't be. They can be. It's just not what's natural. In the moment of choice, in the moment of stress, you tend to go to how you score. And when you take the test, the inventory, be honest. Just be honest. Because there's not right or wrong. You are wired like you're wired. What I love to tell couples to do is to take one of the tests for your partner, right? So how do I see Jill? How does Jill see me? That sort of thing. So trying to be true to our time. Those are the 8 letters that form the 16 types. 16, for example, you have the ENFP, which is me, and it's also about 7% of the world. You have the ISTJ, which is not me. Just not. I would love to be, but I'm not. ENFPs are known as catalysts, and we're usually very passionate, right? And we like to make things happen. But if you have too many ENFPs on a staff, just so you know, a lot of ideas, not a whole lot of stuff gets done, right? ENFPs are idea people. ENFPs are idea people, and you need the TJs to get things done. So we all have our strengths, our weaknesses, our blind spots, and we're going to send the link out tomorrow. I hope you'll take it, and then I hope you'll email us back, tell us what you are. Send it to your friends. Let them take it. Even if they didn't do the class, it's fine. But I put a lot of weight in Myers-Briggs. I think the work they did is phenomenal. And I've spent a lot of time with it. So I love it. I love to understand it. And the more I understand it, the better I feel. And I like to kind of peg what people are. I'll tell you the hardest one to really peg is the EI, because you have to be around someone a lot. But if you have conversation with someone for 15, 20 minutes, you can start feeling out what they are. Or maybe I can because I'm an N and not an S. I don't know. Maybe S's can't. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me, message me on Facebook. I love talking about this stuff. Next week, we'll go over some of the spirituality things that come about because of it. And we'll see where it takes us. It'll be some fun. It's a little more light than our last few weeks. I think we need a little lightness now. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to close us in prayer, and I'm going to go eat. Let's pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for today. We thank you for the love and for the grace that you've given us. We pray now that you continue to be with us, watch over us, watch over our first responders and those in the medical field and those who are working in the essential businesses, delivering food and stocking shelves to help us get through moments like this. And God, help us just to be patient with one another and just love one another. And we give you thanks for that love and grace you shower upon us. For in your Son's name we gather. In his holy name we pray. Amen.